We are following breaking news. Milwaukee police are questioning a suspect in a string of killings dating back more than 20 years. We are just moments away from a news conference with the police chief and district attorney updating us on the investigation. We'll bring that to you live. This date back to 1986 with two murders just one day apart, Deborah Harris and Tanya Miller. They extend to the 2000 murder of Weatherian Stokes. Most of the victims were prostitutes except for 16-year-old Jessica Payne. Now we're following breaking news. More criminal charges come down against Milwaukee's suspected serial killer. The district attorney announced the new charges against Walter Ellis late this afternoon. That brings the number of women Ellis is charged with killing to 7. 12 News' Nick Bohr is live at the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Nick?
That's right, Shelby, and this is the complaint just filed late this afternoon listing those 7 victims that 49-year-old Walter Ellis is accused of killing. And the Attorney General is now personally involved in finding out why Ellis's DNA sample wasn't in the state system as it should have been. In some cases, it's been 23 years since their murders, but charges have finally come against the accused killer. Walter Ellis now faces 7 homicide counts for crimes dating back to 1986. He's tied to 2 more victims, and the DA says they're still working on those. And John Chisholm says it may not end there.
At present time, I believe 9 is the number. However, I am open and would not be surprised if additional hits were to come back. That would not surprise me at all.
Questions remain about whether some of the murders could have been avoided if Ellis was listed in a statewide DNA database for convicted felons, as he should have been. The Department of Corrections says they took a sample in 2001, but Attorney General J.B. Von Hollen says they have no record of receiving it.
But if it happened to that sample, it may have happened to other samples. We don't want to have any questions or concerns in our DNA process or evidence in the future. So it's in our best interest, it's in everybody's best interest to find out as rapidly as possible, if there was a sample, what happened to it.
And Ellis remains jailed on $1 million bail. He's due back in court here in 2 weeks. Reporting live at the county courthouse in Milwaukee, Nick Bohr, WISN 12 News.
His killing spree spanned more than 2 decades.
Photographers capturing the final snapshots of a convicted serial killer just before he is sentenced to life in prison without parole. 50-year-old Walter Ellis of Milwaukee pled no contest in the murders of 7 women between 1986 and 2007. All of the victims were strangled.
Why? Something went wrong in his life, that he had to kill all these women.
Labor Day, a day that was meant to celebrate hard-working Americans and the progression America has made as a result of the American workforce. Labor Day is normally filled with cookout vibes, an occasional drunk uncle, and if you black, well, we turn it up because we turn up on every holiday, even the ones we don't celebrate. But back to the story. The people of Milwaukee don't even know it, but this is about to be a day to be marked in history. See, in the mid-2000s, the technology of DNA evidence have become way more advanced than in the previous decades. This led detectives to reopen in hopes of solving cold cases of the 80s and the 90s. Take it back to Labor Day, and the nuclear bomb about to be dropped. WISN Channel 12 News, along with Chief Ed Flynn and Maritime Barrett, about to do a live broadcast how one man's DNA was connected to the unaliving of 9 women, in which one was a minor. See, in previous years, Wisconsin didn't have a DNA database. You could think of the DNA database as like a blood bank for all people who was arrested in Milwaukee after a certain period of time. A task force created a list of 200 people in which you wanted to receive DNA testing from. Included on that list, the man himself, Walter Ellis. See, Mr. Ellis' DNA was supposed to be in his database a long time ago. But however, it being lost during transport, it never made it. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why the Milwaukee Police Department would protect and cover up a serial killer? Which makes some, including me, find that very suspicious. Is Milwaukee trying to cover up something? Well, it turns out, Mr. Ellis wasn't just your average serial killer. He was also a confidential informant, which means he worked hand in hand with the Milwaukee Police Department. Let's take a moment. Let's get into some of Mr. Ellis' criminal history for a moment. Show you why things look a little fishy. He was arrested at the early age of 14 for the attempted unaliving of somebody, but however was let go with a slap on the wrist and a large fine due to him being an underage minor. It was said as a troubled youth, Mr. Ellis showed signs of antisocial behavior and being aggressive to his peers. Assaulting classmates and neighboring children quickly earned him the reputation of being the local bully. After finishing up the 8th grade, Mr. Ellis dropped out, never to be returning back for high school. Even after that, he racked up numerous felonies again, and this time they actually sent him to prison, but he was released in 1985. With him being released on probation or parole, his agent made him find honest work, and he did that. Until September that year, he was arrested again for extortion. The victim of the extortion case was a prostitute. So with that being said, her credibility didn't hold over in court, so the judge decided to drop his charges once again. After this, he was in and out of prison for the next couple years, but however, we go take it to 1990. He joined the drug trafficking ring Brothers of the Struggle, which is based out of Chicago. They beefed with other gangs over territory until he was arrested that November for drug distribution. Due to his extensive rap sheet and several federal violations, he was sent to a federal prison in Minnesota. This time when he got out, his PO sent him to a halfway house where things got a little interesting. The halfway house was filled with corruption. Seeing this, Walter snitched on the people in the halfway house, which gave him the opportunity to be a confidential informant for the Milwaukee Police Department. And after this, he still racked up numerous charges, but however, due to his status as a confidential informant, he kept getting off. I take it they found him more valuable on the streets than in prison, a decision that would later haunt them. Later in 1997, he was arrested again for attempted robbery. During the arrest, he assaulted an officer, which led to him being sentenced to 5 years probation. He committed a host of other crimes, which led to him being relieved of his duties as a confidential informant. First, we're gonna talk about the only surviving victim. Her name, Mrs. Denise Williams. In the mid-1980s, at the height of the crack epidemic, many African Americans of the urban community found themselves being hooked on crack cocaine, with Mrs. Denise being one of them. One evening when she was on her way to her auntie house to cop drugs to use, walking down Chambers taking her usual shortcut through the playground, she ended up on Titania where she seen this guy walking back and forth with a cream shirt on. Though he was walking back and forth, she really wasn't paying attention to him, so she didn't find it suspicious at the time. Directly across the street from her, she heard a distinctive voice say, "Hey, you get high?" She said, "Why?" He said, "Because I want somebody to get high with." Though she had her suspicions and second thoughts at the time, the addict side of her brain that wanted to get high right away went along with him. So after following him down the street for a while, they ended up at this abandoned house. She instantly became paranoid and told him, "Nah, I'm not going in there." When he realized she wasn't gonna budge, he decided to take her to another house, which was also abandoned. And after that, a third, which was also abandoned. So at this point, she just tell him straight up like, "I don't go in abandoned houses." Then she go into detail with him like, "Look, I need to get high around people because when I get high, I get paranoid." She notices Mr. Ellis starting to get frustrated because his top lip start quivering. Long story short, he ended up taking her to another house. When they get to this other house, it's an elderly couple in the living room. It's one man with a cane and a woman. Though the presence of other people made her feel more comfortable, it was clear that the couple did not want them there. When she seen he was leading her down to a basement, she instantly became suspicious all over again. He told her she should go down first, but when she saw it wasn't any light down there, she said, "No, I think you should go first."
On through this little hallway like, and he opens up this door before he gets to the kitchen. And then I said, "Uh-oh, we going down a basement or something." And then I said, "Is there a light down there?" He said, "Yes." And then he wanted me to go ahead first. And I said, "No, you go ahead." And he went first. And going down there, I didn't see any light.
Okay, let me bring things back a little bit. The reason why she agreed to follow him to the house is because he told her that he was a drug dealer. And she's thinking, okay, if I'm with a drug dealer, I'm gonna get to smoke all night. So her intentions was to smoke up all his drugs and then leave. Okay, back to the basement. Down in the basement, Mr. Ellis proceeds to pull out a crack rock, a pipe, and smoke it right in front of her without offering her anything. It was said that Mr. Ellis might have lured other victims by telling them that he was a drug dealer. As Mrs. Winters was sitting on a crate that he offered, she suddenly got a feeling of an evil presence that have entered the room.
It's not right, and I'm feeling this evil presence.
Something dark, cold. She said it startled her. It felt like something wicked was just twirling around her. But yet again, with her being an addict and just wanting to get high, she decided to stay. So she asked him, "Do you got more?" And he replied, "I'm a drug dealer. Of course I got more." She initially thought when he put the first rock on the pipe that he was gonna hand it to her, but instead he smoked it himself. After he took his hit, he handed it to her without putting anything on there. And with her knowing about being a drug addict, if you mess up your first hit, you gonna be chasing a ghost all day.
And so I thought he was going to hand it to me when he put the big boulder on there. He didn't. He hit it himself. So I'm looking at him like, okay. So then he handed it to me and he didn't put anything on there. So I said, and anybody that smokes, know your first hit is the hit. Anything else, you chasing a ghost.
Meaning that if your first hit is not powerful enough, you go be basically chasing a high all day that you'll never get. So what she did was fake like she hit it and pass it back to him and tell him, I'm ready to go. Quickly, he grabbed her by her arm and said, B, take your clothes off. Then he proceeded to R-word her. She started to follow his commands, but however, he felt like she wasn't moving fast enough and forcefully did it on his own. She asked to keep her top on due to it being cold down there, which he allowed. And then when he got done, he just laid on top of her. She took this as her time to make a run for it and quickly jetted towards the stairs. He then wrapped his hands around her throat and began to strangle her. With all the noise being made, it caught the attention of the guy with the cane upstairs. The guy opened the door and yelled, "Hey, what you doing to that girl down there?" And when Walter looked up, he eased off her neck, instantly giving her a feeling of relief. She ran to her sister's house where she called the police. But crazy thing about it, they ain't even believe her. Shout out Miss Denise, she's doing well today. She even came out with a book titled The Untold Story, The One Who Got Away, based on the incident. I think I might put the link in the description or down below. Okay, let's get into some more victims. The first documented deceased victim, her name was Deborah Harris, 31 years old. She was found in 1986 in a local river in Milwaukee. What's crazy about this victim is our previous victim, Miss Denise, actually knew her and warned her that there was a serial killer in the area, but she didn't take her seriously. The next victim was Tanya L. Miller. She was 19 years old. It was a day later. She was found strangled between a house and a garage. In 1995, he strikes again with Florence McCormick. She was 28 years old. She was found strangled in an abandoned house. In June of that year, Sheila Farrier. Later that year, he struck again with Jessica Payne, a 16-year-old runaway, found in the same way. It was different than other crimes because he actually had sex with her before he killed her. 2 other men was actually convicted of this crime, but later exonerated due to evidence. A year later, we got Joyce Mims, 41, found on the 2nd floor of an abandoned building. 10 years later, we got Mrs. Strokes, 28, also found in an abandoned building. Now, what's crazy about this is, how do you do all this back to back? And then for 10 years, just go on a break. Mrs. Winter actually said in a later interview that he have over 27 victims. The judge finally convicted this man and sentenced him to 7 life sentences. However, 4 years into the sentence, he passed away. So was that really justice? Is he paying for it in the afterlife as we speak? We may never know. But until next time, like, comment, subscribe if you like these videos, and I'll bring them to you every week.